definition of insanity is insanity is doing the exact same thing over and over again, expecting shit to change. I'm sorry, I don't like the way you are looking at me. Did I ever tell you the definition of insanity?
Oh, Jesus. No.
Oh, you!
Far Cry 3, the game that redefined open-world shooters and set the standard for what we now know as the Ubisoft formula. Back in 2012, it felt like something new and exciting, and over a decade later, it still holds up as a fan favorite. But what makes Far Cry 3 stand out, even among its successes? Why does it still capture the imagination of so many players? Well, today, we're going deep into what makes this game special and why I think it's the best Far Cry.
You are ready, warrior. Here is your blade.
So before we jump into it, let's start by looking at 2012 in the year of gaming. We got Assassin's Creed 3, Max Payne 3, Borderlands 2, Mass Effect 3, and some other competitors like Halo 4 and Dishonored. Although it was an intense year for competition, Far Cry 3 stood out. Its unique setting, gameplay, and story struck a chord with all players, even among all of these AAA games I just mentioned. Assassin's Creed 3 was supposed to be huge, but had very divisive reception. Far Cry 3, however, was a near universal hit, critically acclaimed and beloved by normal players. IGN called it one of the best shooters of the year, praising its amazing sense of freedom and player choice. GameSpot highlighted the thrilling outpost takeovers and unpredictable open-world action. These glowing reviews set it apart from the other releases and solidified its place as a standout game. But it's not just about being a good game in a packed year. Far Cry 3 was different. At the time, we had open-world games, but none of them had the same level of freedom, chaos, and immersive gameplay. It felt like the best parts of different genres. You know, a mix of first person, a mix of RPG, a mix of survival, all wrapped in one gorgeous tropical setting. Now looking back, the story may not be crazy, but at the time, Far Cry 3's story was a huge feature. You play as Jason Brody, a privileged, thrill-seeking tourist who's on vacation with his friends.
Pass down. Hold the door! Yo, Jason, get in!
But things quickly take a dark turn when they're kidnapped by pirates, led by the psychotic Vas Montenegro.
I like this phone. This is a nice phone.
Everyone remembers Vas. In fact, he may have even made this game so memorable. Why am I talking about it today? Why does it still hold up? Part of it is that it was ahead of its time. The gameplay loop, the liberating outposts, crafting, exploring, it all felt so timeless. Sure, the mechanics have aged, only slightly, but the core experience is still as enjoyable as ever. And for new players, there are mods, and there's even a remaster version for consoles right now. A lot of people would argue that Far Cry 4 is actually the better game, but to me, it didn't have the same impact. Maybe it was the time I grew up with, maybe it was that Far Cry 3 came first, and Far Cry 4 felt like almost a copy and paste. Also, in Far Cry 4 and the future games, the skills and customization options started to feel more like checking boxes. There wasn't the same personal connection to the progression system. In Far Cry 6, for example, you didn't even have a traditional skill tree. Instead, progression was tied to gear, which made leveling up feel less personal and more like an RPG grind. I guess this has to do with the Ubisoft formula. It really became more bloated after Far Cry 4. Even Far Cry 5 suffered from it. The maps were just cluttered with activities, many of which felt like busy work. Liberating regions in Far Cry 5 was satisfying at first, but after a while became repetitive. And Far Cry 6 doubled down on this, making the world larger, but also more empty. Far Cry 3 though stands out because it struck the perfect balance between story, gameplay, and world design. This might have been due to the limitations of the console back then, or just the work put into the game. One of the main things that a good game needs to have is gameplay. You know, it's a game. And Far Cry 3's gameplay, to me, was beautiful and flawless. Far Cry 3 is where the Ubisoft formula truly took shape. The open world was packed with things to do, liberating outposts, hunting animals, crafting gear, and exploring a huge map filled with many secrets. At the time, this was revolutionary. The way it blended exploration, survival, and action felt very fresh, giving players a sense of freedom that few games had at that time. Going back to Far Cry 2, they had experimented with some of these ideas, but it was so clunky.
Stop there. You know the drill, no weapons.
The weapons were trash, enemies kept respawning, and of course the malaria you had to worry about constantly taking a pill. Far Cry 2 was more of a harsh survival game with very punishing mechanics. Far Cry 3 smoothed out the rough edges, making the experience more approachable but still challenging, catering to those who just want a more chill, casual experience. The meat and bones in Far Cry 3, apart from the story, is the outpost. You could approach these outposts however you wanted, going guns blazing, snipe from a distance, or unleash chaos by luring animals into the camp. It gave you complete freedom to play how you wanted, and this freedom became the backbone of Ubisoft's open world design for years to come. We see it in Assassin's Creed, Avatar, the future Far Cry games, and so on. Throughout the story, your progression wasn't just about unlocking new abilities. It was about transformation. The skill tree in Far Cry 3 was one of the most rewarding parts of the game. Every time you unlocked a new skill, Jason would get a new tattoo, and his arm eventually became a fully covered sleeve by the time you've unlocked every ability. It was a unique and great way to visually represent your evolution from a scared kid to a deadly warrior. And again, I haven't seen it replicated in many games since. The skills themselves were a perfect balance of useful and fun. You could unlock abilities like takedowns from above or below, chain takedowns, improved health, and faster healing. Me personally, I always go for the healing first. And these skills weren't just passive upgrades. They made you feel more capable, more dangerous, and more in control, where by the end of the game, you felt like an unstoppable force, and it was reflected in both gameplay and the story. Now, I don't know how young everyone was when they played this, but I was kind of young, and one of the most memorable things about this game was the Skrillex mission.
I'm running dry. Maybe the pirates got a stash lying around.
In this mission, you're tasked with burning down a drug field. You get slightly high from all the fumes, while Skrillex's song blasts in the background. It's one of those perfect gaming moments where everything comes together. The music, the chaos, the gameplay, the visual spectacle. It is such a highlight of the game, and players still talk about it today. It reminds me a lot of the Saints Row 3 mission where Kanye West plays as you fall from the sky and infiltrate a skyscraper. Just the vibe was on point. Now, let's talk about the beautiful, dangerous world of Far Cry 3. Rook Island is more than just a setting. It's technically a character in its own right. The island is beautiful, with tropical beaches, dense jungles, and towering cliffs. As beautiful as it is though, it's also very dangerous. You've got pirates, hostile wildlife, and deadly terrain. The island is constantly reminding you that you're not in control. The wildlife actually plays a huge role in the danger. Tigers will sneak up on you in the jungle, sharks will attack you while swimming, which scared the hell out of me. I remember being scared to go in the water because the sharks would attack me. And the Komodo dragons will ambush you when you least expect it. The world just felt alive, unpredictable, and there was always things trying to kill you, whether that be humans or animals. Something subtle that I'll also touch on is the dynamic weather and day and night cycle. At the time, these environmental changes made the world feel even more immersive. A peaceful sunset could turn into a tense night as you try and sneak into an outpost. A storm could suddenly roll in and change how you approach the mission completely. It kept the game feeling fresh, even hours into the experience. For me, one of the themes that I really enjoyed was the drugs and hallucinations. The island of Far Cry 3 isn't just a physical place, it's a psychological battlefield. As Jason becomes more entrenched in the violence and madness, the game introduces hallucinogenic elements that mirror his internal struggles. The island's jungle is full of strange plants and natural substances, many of which are used in the creation of a hallucinogenic drug that play a crucial role in the game's story and mission structures. Dr. Earnhardt, a drug-addicted scientist, introduces Jason to these substances. Earnhardt uses the island's plants to create experimental drugs. The effects of these substances often take Jason into bizarre, otherworldly experiences, where the line between reality and hallucination blurs. These drug-induced moments reinforce the game's overarching theme of losing oneself, not just physically, but mentally. The drugs serve as a visual and storytelling tool to show how deeply the island is affecting Jason's psyche. At one point, Citra gives Jason a mysterious drink that induces a powerful hallucinogenic trip. During this mission, Jason experiences a series of strange, dreamlike sequences. He fights shadowy figures, navigates through a surreal, twisting version of the island, and encounters symbolic visions of power, violence, and madness. But this mission isn't just about trippy visuals. It symbolizes Jason's internal struggle as he becomes more drawn to the power and violence of the island. Citra knows this, and she brings on these hallucinations to push Jason deeper into the warrior's path. Although not integral to the game, it did actually have multiplayer. Had the classic modes like Team Deathmatch, Domination, and so on. I do have memories of playing this. It was fun, but I also remember it being kind of pointless. Leveling up on COD felt more important than leveling up in Far Cry 3. It also had co-op campaign that was broken into a series of missions with distinct objectives, such as defending an area, taking out specific targets, or reaching extraction points. Players had to work together to complete the missions, with some objectives requiring teamwork and coordination, like fixing down broken vehicles or covering each other while completing tasks. These co-op missions had more of a linear structure compared to the open world nature of the main game, but it still maintained the high action, explosive gameplay that Far Cry 3 was known for. So in summary, Far Cry 3 wasn't just another game, especially in 2012. It was a turning point for open world design. Its story, characters, and gameplay all came together to create something unforgettable. Whether you played it when it first came out, or whether you're discovering it for the first time now, this game continues to stand out over games like Far Cry 4, 5, 6, and all its earlier iterations. Although they've tried to build on what made Far Cry 3 magical, none of the Far Cry games quite seem to capture the magic of Rook Island, and that's why, even in 2024, Far Cry 3 remains the best in the series. Thanks for sticking around for this long. If you're still here, leave a comment so I know you stayed this long. And let me know if you agree with me that Far Cry 3 is the best Far Cry game out of all of them. Be sure to drop a like, subscribe for more videos like this. Until next time, peace.